Welcome to Breaking the Chain. This is our 14th episode, and I'm Jacob.
And I'm Cody.
And we got like huge news this week with like the dev talk. I say huge news, but it's like such an interesting conversation and a big drop from the devs. So we're gonna dive deep into that, and I have some opinions at least that I'm really excited to share because like I haven't heard anyone bring up a few of these things. But anyways, we got what we did in Flesh and Blood this week. What did you do?
I unfortunately didn't really do anything. This is one of those rare weeks that I didn't go to an armory and actually didn't really do any testing either. Kind of took a break. Had a weekend vacation that I went on, and just some other like non-Flesh and Blood stuff. Really. How about you?
So yeah, I was talking last week how I built Valda. I ended up playing a bit of Valda, and I went to an armory. So Valda is so much fun.
Oh, really?
So cool. I love Valda so much. Like, I was doing crazy things, and I know I posted like one thing to Blue Sky where I threw an attack for 18 dominate for free. I'm like, that feels pretty good. Or like, I threw a free pulverize, or no, it wasn't free. I think I paid 3, but it's like 1 blue pulverize for 19.
Oh no.
It's so much fun.
Do you think these are like regular things that happen, or did they just happen because your opponent was drawing a lot, or?
Well, they're like the way I built it is regular. It's like, but the downside of me doing these big crazy plays is like, there was one turn I was playing like Noah at the local armory, and he was playing Max, and I think he had a 6-card hand because I was like.
6-card.
Promise. I was like, oh, promising terrain. Whenever I create a seismic surge, create an extra seismic surge. This round's on me. We both draw a card, which creates 2 seismic surge because you drew, 2 seismic surge because I drew. Draw a crowd. We both draw a card. 2 seismic surge for me, 2 seismic surge for you. Then I did what was that one card? Anyways, I did Embolden. I drew a card, created 2 more seismic surge, and my next attack gets +5. So maybe I paid 4 for it. But then I like Arsenal to pulverize. And like I ended up losing that game still, but it was a lot of fun to be like, let's go, like draw all these cards, throw a pulverize, so like funny. 1, 2 blues, like 19 damage, take that, and then like the max player like now over there is like, 0 for 4, 1 for 5, gain like some energy from the hyperdrivers, 0 for 4, 1 for 5. And then I think he transformed into the mech, and then he hit me twice with the mech. It was like, it was a crazy turn. He ended up throwing like 5 cards, pitching 1, and swinging mech twice.
Wait, so you played Valda at Mythic on Tuesday?
Yeah, well, not like at the armory, but like out. Like,
okay, I was about to ask. I was like, I don't think she's legal yet.
No. I played Jarl, but
that makes sense.
Yeah, and I mean, I played at home too, so it's like I played a lot of Valda, which was fun. But I played Jarl, and that was cool. I did there was one Jarl mirror where I'm like, I'm gonna play completely a pitch stack, and it didn't end up like I got there in the end, but unfortunately, it didn't end up going exactly how I wanted it because we get to my pitch stack. I was 1 off on my pitch stack too. So I was like 1 card off. I'm like, oh no, whatever. I'll just block and take a turn off, and then I win this game. And then the opponent threw Winter Spike, Icequake, Frostfang, and ended up getting me on a really backhand. But nice. I was like super proud of myself because I pitch stacked like a Oaken Old fused into an Oaken Old fused into a Sotomorrow to put another Oaken Old on the like. It says Oaken Old, Sotomorrow, Oaken Old into a pack for 12. I think it was Glacial Footstep for 12. Into a Pummeled Hammer for 10. Like, just get the like ball rolling, and then it would have been another Oaken Old fused or something crazy like that.
That's the classic Oldhim pitch deck, right? Is pitch decking your Oaken Olds with the fuses and pummels, and I
felt so good because I was like, I ended up getting there, like I said, but it was like, okay, well, let me look at my pitch stack. Like, if I
Everything
wasn't
goes
off by
together,
one
yeah.
card, boom, 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 boom. But
Round of
anyways, that
Seas
was my
wouldn't have
week.
put you off by one card. Okay.
Yeah.
That'd be
So what
broken.
happened was there was a time when I arsenaled a card, and I'm like, I don't think this is correct, but I really don't want to keep this in hand. I'm just gonna arsenal a card, and that's what hurt me because I couldn't get that out of arsenal. I couldn't put another card in arsenal to then play it and like get more advantage. Ended
Yeah.
up like really clogging up my like a couple of hands.
I haven't played a ton of heroes where you are like better off just IPing yourself than arsenaling a card. But like whenever I do play, have those situations come up, it feels so bad. It feels so
Yeah,
bad just to like
yeah,
IP one card. It's literally one card. You can just arsenal it and draw 4 more cards, but you have to do it because arsenaling that card is just the worst thing you could ever do.
welcome to Guardian,
Yeah.
baby.
But
My
yeah.
4 for 6 blue. Yeah, I'm not arsenaling
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, well, like Cranial Crush or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Cranial Crush is okay.
Oh,
It's
that's right.
like when
That's
you
right.
get
That's
like
8.
blue choke slam, you're like,
Yeah.
ooh, I'm like, this is gonna sit in here for like 5 turns until I have an all blue hand.
Yeah.
Oh,
Huh. Yeah,
anyways,
that's a fun Guardian week for you, though.
oh, it was so much fun. I had a huge blast. I can't wait for Valda to finally be legal and then like just like run into it. Like the fun thing is like I'm doing crazy things, but I'm gonna get punished the turn before I do something crazy because I'm like, aha, you have a 7 card hand. I hope you can't kill me.
Yeah, that is true. On your strongest turns, you're making your opponent have their strongest turns too.
Yeah. And it's like if it's a guardian mirror, like I feel like Valda's gonna be great because a lot of guardians are gonna be like, I have a 7 card hand and I can play 3 of them. Like, what
Right.
am I gonna do?
They can
But
control
like when you're up against like, oh, Fi, he's like, oh, well, I'll just go super wide. So
like
this hand was unplayable, but
what's funny too though is that like the version of Enigma before she LL'd probably also wouldn't have been able to convert the extra cards all that much
Mhm.
either. So you wouldn't have been able to maybe go over the top against Enigma too and actually have a decent chance. But she's gone before Valda could shine. It's fine.
right.
um
Oh,
But yeah, with that being our week in Flesh and Blood, the next big topic for this episode is the dev talk, the spicy dev talk that came out. What was it, Monday or Tuesday? I think it was Monday, right? Um,
I think it was Monday.
yeah, and we're recording on Thursday right now. And so it came out a few days ago.
Mhm.
There was a lot of controversy revolving around this dev talk. And we both went through our local Discord, had a lot of discussion about it, and I think there was just a lot of varied opinions as well.
Mhm.
Where ranging from you know outrage at LSS for making the mistake of Aurora LN this quickly, and like defending them for owning some mistakes and stuff. But we'll get on to that. Well, I guess like, do you want to start with all the topics that were discussed in the dev talk on Monday?
Yeah, it's something we could like break down. I know we have a couple notes off on the side, and I added
Mhm.
near the beginning because
Yeah, I guess we
in
go
the
line by
beginning,
line.
yeah, I wrote down, is the LL system a problem or is it working as intended?
Mm,
I kind of interjected that into like some of the notes you added, but I think that was one of the very like beginning things they talked about
yeah.
because I know they
So
like mentioned it and
we should probably preface this for anyone that doesn't know. Aurora did LL this past weekend, or at least achieve enough points to Living Legend, and that means that she hit Living Legend just after 8 months. I think it was like just over 8 months after her release.
I think it
Um,
was just under 8 months
I was just
actually because
under.
it
It
was
was.
like the end of a month and the beginning of this month.
I see. So it's about 8 months for her release, which is the second fastest hero to Living Legend in the game.
Mhm.
Right after Starvo. Well, not right after Starvo. Starvo was what, 4 months, 6 months? But the second fastest hero in the game to LL. And not even 2 months after the Armory deck was released, uh, which is pretty quickly for a product to get released and then that hero
Be
to LL.
irrelevant.
Yeah, exactly. Not irrelevant. I mean, she could be played in the Living Legend format, but
Right,
regardless,
that's
that's
true.
some background to the reason for this dev talk. And the devs effectively had a discussion, a frank discussion on why it happened and what they're doing to work on it in the future. And so then Jacob's posing the initial question of, is the LO system a problem or is it working as intended? Um, and I think that the Runaways podcast actually had a really, really good discussion on the Living Legend system. I don't think it's their latest episode. I think it's the one before,
Hmm.
where they they basically posed the question like, is the LL system working well as of right now? And this was basically knowing that Aurora was going to LL the following weekend. Um, and I highly recommend everyone to listen to that podcast, because I was actually, my mind was changed by their discussion on it. And before I dig into that, I'm curious on your thoughts, Jacob. You did you have any things you want to talk about when you put this note in the meeting minutes or the meeting
Well,
notes?
I know it was like one of their biggest topics because at the beginning of like the whole dev talk, they're like, oh, like they're talking Aurora and how she yelled, and they're like, oh, we're looking at adjustments, and it's I know it was a big topic right before even the dev talk came up, where people are like, well, like is the LL like, is it broken? Is it bad? People like Aurora went crazy fast. Like, what is going on? And I started that podcast, but I didn't actually finish it or get to the relevant part of the Runaways podcast where they actually started talking about it. So I haven't actually heard much, if any, of their opinion on it.
Mm-hmm.
But like, it's just such a relevant part to the dev talk. I thought it was something that we could bring up, and especially being so early in the dev talk and such a pivotal point to like all the talking points, I thought it was something that could be really relevant to bring up.
Yeah.
But personally, I think that it is working pretty much as intended, because it's the idea of a hero is going to earn these points to take itself out of the system. I think it's the failure of other points that is what ended up causing Aurora to go so fast. I think
Right.
I think if anything, like maybe there was a lot of points this season, or just like in quick succession, because we had like a couple callings, the Pro Tour, and an entire Pro Quest season in 2 months. That's like 2,000 points in 2 months. That's enough to LL2 brand new heroes.
Yeah.
So like you could say like maybe they need to tone down the points, and that's where I could see like maybe a little bit of a failure is like on the LL system itself. It's like there's too many points being given out, but honestly with how many heroes there are, I don't think that's completely true. I think it's more of the failure of separate different points in this like system and the other points in the game, which I know I have a big one way later down in a different topic that I think is the failure and not
Yeah.
the LL system itself.
Yeah. I will just flat out say I think the LL system did its magic by by its usage on, or its result on Aurora this past weekend. I think that's exactly what it was intended for. I think it did its job.
Hmm.
And like you said, we're going to get to later. I think it was a failure of the of other outside factors that caused her to LL so quickly. But I do think that it did its job. Right, there was a hero that was overperforming, and it was clearly over dominating the meta, and it earned its status as a living legend, and it needed to go. Right, and that's what the system was built for, and it did its job. I think it's doing exactly what it was intended to do, and I think it was a benefit in this case. Like, I know that obviously because they released the Aurora Armory deck, that they didn't want this to happen, but I think if the Aurora Armory deck wasn't released 2 months before her LLing, I don't think that it would be as big of a deal. I think if Aurora wasn't on this path to this new player experience, a new player path to CC, or what, I forget what it was called, what it was named as. But I think if it wasn't on this new player path, I think that it would have been a celebrated living legend. Um,
Hmm.
but
I don't
instead,
think it would
because
have
of all these,
warranted like.
yeah,
So I was gonna say I don't think it would have warranted a dev talk if it was any other hero other than Aurora.
right. Like if it was, I mean, like I guess that is a good point. Like if we replace Aurora with, was it Florian, Acilio, or Verdance, would we be having the same conversation? Would we have a dev talk? Would we have some outrage over the hero lane? And I think the answer is no. But I mean, I could be wrong, right? There could be some.
I
There
think there
could
would
be some.
be a small amount, but I think it's so much extra because there's all these like new like this is the pathway for new players. Like you
Mhm.
are developing all these new players through Aurora, and it's like the first one they've really truly built out of like oh, you start with the first strike, then you can go to blitz, then you
Right.
can go to like the armory deck and then upgrade to CC. It is the first hero where it's like, here's a designated path for you to go down.
Yeah.
And it went so quick. Like if it was Verdance that went this early, I'm sure there's a lot of Verdance players that would be like, what? No, why would they let this happen? But I think
Yeah.
the thing is like, it is Aurora, where it's like not only do you have all these people that like Aurora, all of a sudden you have all these people that were introduced on Aurora, and you have all these people that only have Aurora. It's
Mhm.
like you have so many different categories of people. This like hits with our living legending.
Yeah. And I don't know if we have. I need to review the notes to see if we talk about this anymore further. But it seems like this is our main topic about Living Legend. So I'll summarize a couple of the points from the Runaways podcast that convinced me that I like the Living Legend system, which is one, if we didn't have a Living Legend system and instead they couldn't figure out what bands to make to reduce the hero power level. The other alternative is just to ban the card, to ban the hero, right? Like they can just ban the hero and say like we can't fix this, right? That's like another option that sometimes happens in other card games where they just ban the entire deck instead of certain cards in the deck, or just effectively neuter it to make it worthless, not playable in the first
Mhm.
place. And I can't remember who it was in the Runaways that brought it up, but with Living Legends system, you see, or no, sorry, I misspoke. Basically, when bans happen in other card games, they're immediate and they're often unexpected, or people expect bans and they don't happen, and that changes the market very significantly. Whereas with Living Legend system, we can see these heroes ticking up and up and up and up and up on this leaderboard until they eventually hit it, but you know it's going to happen, right? Like you get
Mhm.
to prepare for it mentally, monetarily, or however you need whenever that ban happens. Like you have a ahead of time notice of these large bans, right? Whereas without the Living Legends system, you don't have that advanced notice. The blow is much harder, right?
Mhm.
I think that was the biggest thing that sold me on the system. And I once they said that, I was like, that's actually that is a really big deal, right? Like we know it's coming, we get to prepare for it. Like I can like start working on a second deck or um pick up cards after pick up cards for the heroes if ahead of time, right? Like I don't need to. It's not going to be a sudden just one day I'm happy I have my deck, and the next day I can't play it anymore.
Right. And we can like backtrack. I'm sure we've said it, and many other like podcasts and other people, even on like all these social medias, have said it where it's like 3, 4 weeks ago, people are like, oh, yeah, Aurora's going this Pro Quest season. Like
Yeah,
everyone knew. Like it
yeah,
wasn't a surprise. I think
yeah.
it was a surprise that it was this week and not the next week. I think that's what most people expected,
Right.
like especially at the beginning. But like outside of that, like everyone knew going in this month and like the end of last month, like, oh, yeah, Aurora's on her last legs. Like, she's gonna LL. Like
Yeah.
like you're saying, everyone knew it was coming, so you had time to be like, okay, I'm gonna lose Aurora. Maybe I should start looking to another deck, or I like Aurora's okay. I don't really care about playing it the next couple weeks. Maybe I'll start buying into another deck, sell these cards while people still want them, and jump ship to another hero.
Mhm. Yeah, I exactly, and that is a big point too. Is that yeah, almost every podcast out there, if you listen to it from a few weeks ago, will say, "Oh yeah, Aurora is going to LL this PQ season." Like it's predictable. You know it's going to happen. You can prepare for it, right? If you need the cards to play your pro quests, then obviously you're going to keep the cards and play through all your pro quests. But if you're just taking a break, then you could sell your cards at the beginning of the pro quest and then not be impacted by the LL, right? Um, so that's a big benefit of the LL system that I like, and I think it like again, like I said earlier, it did its job here. It's just because of the outside factors surrounding Aurora that it's caused a lot of issues.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
but,
So jumping into the next point though
mhm,
was they admitted that they wanted to ban Flicker Wisp. And I know it was like a big topic, and it sounds like it was a big topic in LSS of like they knew Aurora was going, and the only way they saw like the stop or slowing her down was before the ProQuest season, like emergency banning Flicker Wisp,
mhm,
and like, hey, this is banned. We need like not necessarily like we need to slow this deck down, but like even just to make it a little more fair into the playing field, and like like even like on one of my ideas is like Flicker Wisp prevented her from having a real weakness because normally, naturally, you'd be able to fatigue her out. And there's a lot of games where I've won against an Aurora on Jarl. I think most every game, except for maybe one or two out of the how many dozens I've played against Aurora. Every one of those games that Flicker Wisp wasn't played, I think I've only lost like 2 of the dozens.
Yeah, and I think that's it's similar to Dash.io, really, when they banned High Octane, because High Octane was the combo piece that made her able to counter fatigue, right? And that's the same thing with Flicker Wisp, was that Flicker Wisp combo was the way that you would counter fatigue as Aurora, right? And so banning Flicker Wisp would have allowed for a lot of different strategies to come through to fatigue her or to play a little bit more control-y and defensive, and would have extended her. She still would have been a dominant deck in the meta, but she would have had actual predators instead of just a ton of 45s and 50/50s, but yeah, so they came out and said that they heavily considered doing an emergency ban and banning Flicker Wisp, whereas the next ban at the time was 2 weeks before Nationals, which was I think like May 27th or something like that, May 26th probably, since I think they moved it up to May 19th now. They moved it a week ahead, so now it's 3 weeks before Nationals, which I, as a Nationals competitor, I like, by the way, but we can get to that later. So they considered making an emergency ban, and decided against it because emergency bans are how do you phrase it? It would have been a small ban, right? That's how they phrased it. Go ahead. What were you saying?
Well, when you're like, oh, how do you phrase that? I'm like, well, they're meant for emergencies.
Yeah, I mean, you could. That's the thing, right? Is that depending on the player, some might consider it an emergency, right? Some might say, hey, it's an emergency, or Aurora's going to LL this PQ season, and that shouldn't happen, right? So by that definition, they should have done it, but their definition at the time was this is reserved for large bans, right? Like, this needs to be a very, very big deal for us to make an emergency ban. And so they decided against it, and I personally agree with it. I think that the Flicker Wisp ban would have been too small of a ban to warrant an emergency ban. And I think obviously there are some ramifications around not doing the ban that caused a lot of issues, but I think again it was because of the surrounding issues that made it, I guess, potentially correct to have done the emergency ban. But I still think the reasoning was correct, right? It was a small ban. Those should be reserved for the regularly announced ban announcements, ban notices, ban
and restricted,
ban and restricted announcements. Yeah.
BNRs.
As opposed to an emergency ban. So I think that the reasoning was correct. I think that it's just the result of not doing it was potentially large enough to warrant it anyway. What do you think?
Right. I think in this situation it was like correct as well. The big downside of doing this again, I think, is what you're saying is the results of this all.
Yeah.
But I think that the reason they didn't is also the idea of the reputation that they didn't want to like gain from doing this kind of thing. Because if they like went and did this is the 3rd time in the last 6 months they would have done it if they did. And like, well, it would have been because they did it with Kraken's Aether Vein, which is like for each arcane damage, UD like draw a card, which they did in LL.
The 11 Legend.
They did the book burning, which was like an emergency ban.
Was that an emergency ban?
I'm pretty sure it was.
Oh, was it?
But I'm pretty sure they've done a lot of emergency bans over I remember because I feel like they did the book burning, and then it was like 2 weeks later they did another emergency ban, which was the Kraken's Aether Vein.
It was a year. It was 8 months ago that they did the book banning.
Okay, so not 6 months, but within this year, I'm pretty sure that was an emergency ban.
I don't think
because we were going into like a competitive season, and we like knew that it was just Bond Zen. But like, and weren't a lot of people, because wasn't it before the Pro Tour? And a lot of people complained that they banned it right before the Pro Tour with only like 2 weeks left.
It was
Or
September
like,
4th.
oh,
When was the Pro Tour? Do you know? Or what? Sorry,
I
what
don't
Pro Tour was
remember
it?
exactly.
Was it
Amsterdam?
was it Amsterdam?
I'm pretty sure it's Amsterdam.
Pro Tour Amsterdam. Now I'm really curious. When did this happen? Compared
Oh,
to
no, Pro Tour Amsterdam. No, it's after. It was Pro Tour. Say Pro Tour. Was it Worlds? It might have
Worlds
been.
would have been November.
No, yeah. What?
I don't think
Maybe
so.
what I feel.
We'll figure it
feel
out
like-
for next episode.
Yeah. But anyways, I think they've done 2 emergency bans really close to each other, and to have a third within a year, like all of a sudden, like you have this reputation of like, oh well, this game, like they have a ban and announce like a ban period, but then
Yeah,
just
something
ban
respected.
whenever they want anyways. Like, what's the point? We might just get a ban here or there. Like, there's no reason to really listen to when the ban. It sets, yeah, and like you said, it sets the precedent of they're just gonna ban whenever instead of following the schedule that they've set, which is like
Right.
a weird reputation.
That does pose a question of, and maybe this is a topic for another time, but because we have plenty more to talk about. But what is the purpose of pre-announcing these ban and restricted dates, right? Like, does it need to be that structured for these BNRs, or can it be a little bit more loose and they could just all effectively be emergency last minute bans?
I think the idea is like having this kind of structure to it is like you go into an event knowing you have this deck that you're playing. Like you know that like okay, like maybe Bonds was broken, but you can practice it the week or 2 weeks before without the worry of like, oh, it's a week before ban, like, and all of a sudden, especially when you're like a pro player, like I had a deck and it's gone.
Well, like the problem is that you don't know what's getting banned. Like we have a ban. We have a ban coming. Is it a week from now or 2 weeks from now? A week and a half from now, right? Because it's May 19th, I think. We have a ban coming. We don't know what's getting banned. We have some ideas. The current thoughts are something for Kano and Florian, right? I think it's what the general sentiment is for bans, but we don't know, right? So I don't know what the difference is between saying, hey, there's a ban happening on May 19th or whatever date it is, versus just saying, hey, we're gonna do a ban in the next week or two in preparation for nationals. Like I don't know the difference between having that scheduled versus just having a 2-week notice that a ban is going to happen whenever it will happen.
I think
that's my thought.
Yeah, there's a lot of times where you don't know what band's coming. Like a lot of times, like looking up at this future one, especially when they said they're gonna have a huge shakeup. Like people can make guesses, no one's gonna know. But there are definitely points when I think like you look at bands, you're like, oh, I saw that coming. That was really obvious. Like, or the weeks leading up, you're like, okay, this is gonna get banned. Like if there was a band announcement between the Pro Tour and the ProQuest season, everyone knew Flicker Wisp was going. No one doubted Flicker Wisp was going. It's like one of those scenarios where it's like there are cards that everyone knows are going. So it's a situation of just like waiting for the ban period for it to hit. And it's something where you can like when you know something like that's gonna go, but you know it's still good now, like you can go into this last Pro Tour knowing you have Flicker Wisp instead of them being right before the Pro Tour being like, is this too strong? Like, there's no weakness to this deck. We're putting a hold to it. Like, I think that it's a good thing, but I think this is like my biggest like complaint, and I think the biggest downfall is like the ban periods. And it's something I've noticed since the beginning, but it's never been like something like the crux of a problem where I think this has been a huge crux of this like Aurora problem is like in Flesh and Blood, it's a hyper competitive game, and like banned and restricted announcements come every like 3 months. But you'll have events like Worlds, Pro Tours, like huge like national events, and then all of a sudden like you'll get through those big events like Worlds and Pro Tours, and if there's no LL, and especially like I think Aurora is a great example. You got this Pro Tour, you get through it, like the best decks Aurora from that. And people are going to take that knowledge and play this deck. people are gonna like. There is no like.
I see what you're saying.
It's like
Yeah.
people are like
Um,
net decking, and they're gonna take this information and use it to win other events, which is fine. But I think it becomes a problem when you have like a 3 month period of like, okay, this first month people are figuring out, they solve the problem. You have 2 months of knowing the solution. And it's one thing when it's like, oh, a deck has like 5-10% on the next deck on the meta. And it's another thing when like Aurora's like, oh, you have like 25% more like win percentage than any other deck on the meta.
yeah, I was just thinking whether or not it's a benefit or a downside to having the ProQuest season, literally the weekend after. Was it the weekend after, or was it two
Mhm.
weeks after the Pro Tour? Um,
I
it was very soon after, regardless.
was very, very soon after.
Um, and I initially thought like, oh, it'd be a great it's a great thing because people watch the Pro Tour, they get excited and pumped
Hmm.
for to play Flesh and Blood competitively themselves, and now they get to do it locally, right? Like it seems like a great thing for the game, but like you said, if there's no meta shakeups between the Pro Tour and these Pro Quests, then you're going into a stale meta effectively, right? You know what the
Right.
best decks are, you know what the strategies are. Um, there's really nothing interesting happening at that level. It's just your own competition at a local level. And um, in this case, we did have some pretty big shakeups, right? We had after the first weekend of ProQuest, we had two LLs, and then after 2 weeks, we had another LL. So there have been some pretty big changes, but that was because LLs happened, not necessarily because
Right.
there was
And
any changes in between.
I think one of the biggest problems too was Enigma LL, which was the only real deck that could counter Aurora. Like,
I
like I
mean,
said,
is that
I could
true?
play I could play Jarl and have a pretty good win rate. It's just
Mhm.
when they get the Flicker Wisp combo like pretty naturally into the game, it's like all of a sudden really bad. But it's like I felt like Enigma was, and another problem was choose a good deck where I think Jarl struggles into a lot of decks where like Enigma was a very good deck that was at least arguably like 45, 55 into
Well, I will say,
Aurora.
I think that a lot of had it been an Enigma LL going into the Pro Tour, then I don't think Aurora would have been the best deck. I think that Aurora is the best deck at a local level where you're
Hmm.
a very strong, aggressive deck that is forcing your opponent to deal with what you're doing, right? And therefore, you
Hmm.
will just win locals with that deck because not enough people will be running counters to you and being able to
Right.
effectively counter you, even with the decks that can counter you, right? Um, and so I think it's more of an issue of this deck is just strong for these types of local tournaments more than uh, the meta didn't have any answers to her, if that makes sense.
Right. And yeah, that makes sense. I guess my idea of like the problem I'm having though is I think that they should have more band schedules because it feels weird to kind of sit through something when you know it's just that much leagues above everything else, and especially at a local level.
I think it
And
is tough though because outside of exactly a Flicker Wisp ban post Pro Tour, um, I don't I don't know that how they would have been able to effectively make bans, right? Because
right.
you can't make a ban, any kind of effective ban within 2 weeks of a hero like Enigma LLing, right? Like you need to give the meta time to to saturate and tell you what
Right.
the best deck is and what the problems are. So I think that it's not a terrible idea to have more scheduled BNRs and then just have more of them be no changes like we've had in the past.
Hmm.
But I do think that it's important to note that I think the game thrives when there is a problem in the meta and people are allowed to really take the time to adjust to it and to adapt to it, right? Like Aurora was the best deck. I mean, people Enigma was also the best deck, right? But Aurora was the best deck and didn't win any of the top events at the Pro Tour, not the Pro Tour or the Calling, um, and it really showed that people were prepared for it and were really challenging its dominance. And as someone who competed, it was really rewarding putting the time and finding something that worked to give us an edge in the matchup, right? So I think that it's important not to diminish the player's ability to outsmart something, right? To like work towards um, a counter for the best deck in the meta, because unless it's just extremely overpowered, which obviously Aurora
Mhm.
was, but unless it's just like Starva levels of overpoweredness, people will find ways to adapt and
Right.
um, to counter it, and it sometimes just needs a little bit of time.
And I think that's like a very strong point. But it's like the idea I have is just like have more, but be willing to have a lot of them just be no change. Like, oh,
And I
no
agree with
change,
that.
no change, no change. Because like all of a sudden it's the situation of like you want to do this flicker wisp ban, which I think they wanted, we wanted, but they don't want to make it like an emergency ban.
Mhm.
Like they want to do this, but because they don't have this frequent like ban, and I say frequent, I imagine like even having like 2 or 3 more ban and restricted announcements in a year when it's like normally like I think like 4 every 3 months or something.
Mhm.
Like making it 7 just like every or even 6 every 2 months, like a ban window, and fitting it
Yeah.
right around every like big event or like right after a big event, as I think is better. Because you still have like 2 months leading up to that big event to like solve what might be a problem deck,
Mhm.
to give that kind of reward, to feel good that you know what you're doing. But it like gives that idea of like, okay, everyone's found that problem deck, everyone's found this solution. We need to fix something. We need to step in, fix something. Or if there's like, oh, it's like not that bad, like, yeah, just okay, like we'll just let it slide.
Mhm. And I
Like,
think that my counter would be that I would like it to instead be just no scheduled bans at all and a 2 week notice that there is going to be a ban. I think that would be a really good solution as well, because then you can have them as much as you needed, as much as you feel like you needed, but you're still giving a 2 week buffer. If people know what's going to get banned, they know it's going to get banned, and then try to schedule it with plenty of time before a major event. If that 2 week notice does happen, like for example, we would have gotten the 2 week notice a week ago for the upcoming ban, instead of
mhm,
knowing that it was happening months ago, which it doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't help us to know that it's going to happen months in advance, right? I think there's
right.
structurally no difference of knowing 3 months ago that this ban was going to happen versus knowing a week ago that's going to happen. So that's my counter,
I
but
yeah. And I think
either one will
with
work.
all this conversation, that is like my biggest crux on what I think is what kind of caused the collapse of Aurora. Like not my biggest, but like I think that's one of
Well,
many
we'll talk
dominoes
about the
and
biggest crux of why Aurora LL'd in a
yeah,
second.
yeah. It's like no, the biggest is wrong, but like one of the bigger dominoes I contribute to Aurora being in LL is the situation of like there was just not enough windows for them
They
to try
tied
and
their own
fix
hands.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
um, I agree. But
cool.
yeah, so just
Now
so that
that
we don't just so we don't run out of time,
yeah,
we probably should move on to the rest
I
of the
was
dev talk.
right. I was gonna say now to
Yeah.
the biggest reason, Skyward Serenade
Hmm.
misprinted, which I have a lot to say about this. But do you want to go on about this one?
So I want to start out with, it was kind of funny. They teased us at first. They said, hey, there was a card in the dev talk. They
Mhm.
say there's a card that was misprinted in the armory deck, and they didn't tell us what it was. And I don't know if Brian just got like a ton of DMs and just kept getting questions about it, or maybe there's just like enough outrage that he felt like they needed to share exactly what it was. But yeah, at first they didn't reveal what the misprint was. They just said there was a misprint, and then we got
Mhm.
I think it was a tweet from Brian on what the misprint was, and we found out that it was Skyward Serenade was supposed to have a single black dot somewhere on the card, and that black dot was supposed to be in front of Go Again. Go Again was supposed to be one of the two options you could choose for Skyward Serenade. It was not supposed to be an automatic attribute of the card, or is that the right word for it? But anyway, you were supposed to have to choose for it to have Go Again, and therefore it would combo better with Arc Lightning or as like a Chain Ender or something. I guess there's maybe like with Blink, or I'm not sure how the intended usage of it was, but you wouldn't have been able just to play it at the start of your turn. for effectively 0 for 4, no matter what.
Right. I do think it was just like an arc lightning combo card
Yeah.
was like the major point of it.
Yeah, I think so too. But yeah, so they got misprinted. Apparently, they designed it with the dot on there, and somewhere between when they designed it and when it got printed, the dot got removed, whether it was by the manufacturer or just some mistranslation. Um, Regardless, it happened, and they caught it after printing, so they couldn't fix it. And they correctly didn't or issue an errata because it was a new player product, as they
Mm,
described, and so they it's not feasible to errata cards that are designed to be in the hands of new players that aren't going to get the errata, right? It's just very confusing.
right.
It's not it's not really an option to do in those cases. And erratas in paper card games are supposed to be reserved for extreme cases, like Briar.
Yeah.
So they couldn't. Their hands were a bit tied on that one as well. They couldn't really do anything about it once it got to printing, and that's the reason that Aurora LL'd, is that she had this extremely good and consistent card called Skyward Serenade that gave free go again, or had
Mm,
free go again on it.
okay. I have a little mini rant to
Yeah.
do about this card, which is like completely different than anything I've ever heard on this point too. So, do you have anything else you want to
No,
say
no. I
about it?
think that's it on the misprint. I think it's unfortunate. I
Okay.
don't think it was. I don't. It sounds like it wasn't their fault. Like they couldn't do anything about it. Um,
Right.
But I will say, actually, one last thing I will say is that this is one of many misprints in the game. Like I don't know, I don't know how many misprints you know of. The ones that come to my head are the Civic Steps arms.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
There wasn't there a card that was printed with an extra attack or block ability? Um, there's like I know there's like at least 3 misprints that I know of, and I just can't. I'm blanking on them at this moment, but I know that I know of them. But there's been a handful of misprints. Oh, there was a in the one of the Tulare Community College boxes. Key Unleashed is called something else. It's called a Key Unbound.
Oh yeah, yeah. I
Um,
think that's exactly what it's
and so
called.
yeah, so technically that card is a unique card, but like I think it technically has an errata to be Key Unleashed as well.
Mm.
So
It's
that
like
you
in
can't run
rule.
6 copies of Red Key Unleashed because
Yeah, I
one of them's
think
full.
like rules wise, it's technically the same name, although there's different names. There's same card with different names.
Yeah. But anyway, so
But they
there's been a lot of text misprints, and so
mm,
this isn't that rare of an occurrence. And I will say that I think that there is something they need to tighten up on because it's causing a lot of big issues like this.
right. It
Um, but
seems like it's a once a year thing, and it's like it's one thing when you print legs as arms that's been like already printed. Haha, very funny. Confirms
mhm.
that Victor's the horse and not the guardian. Like
I
we
didn't realize that part of it. That's funny.
like very funny. Like there's stuff like that, or like Key Unleashed. Like I don't, or like Key Unbound, or whenever it came out, like that didn't cause an uproar. People were like, "That's a little weird that it was like snuck through and no one noticed," but like whatever. It's
Mhm,
like the big problem is when it's a card like Skyward Serenade, and it's like goes from what everyone has said goes from completely unplayable
mhm.
to one of the better cards in the deck just because of one bullet point. That I think that's what's causing a lot of uproar on like the I mean that is the uproar.
Right.
But I think that like it's from what I can tell it's like a once a year thing and I don't know how often this happens in other card games. But it's
I don't know if it happened in other card games that much. Uh,
right. I mean, I only play Flesh and Blood, so it's
right.
like
Yeah. It's hard for
it's
me to
like
say.
unfortunately I don't have any like outside perspectives to steal from. Like, oh, Magic the Gathering only does this once every 5 years. I've never seen it in One Piece. I can't tell you.
Yeah, I couldn't either.
And it's
It's fun.
another thing that like it might be something that happens in other games that no one says. Like they didn't have to come up and tell us that Skyward Serenade was misprinted.
Yeah.
Like I don't think anyone would have ever noticed that this was a misprint
Yeah, they
if
would
they said
yeah, they would have just thought that it was just a design choice, to
yeah.
make that card. But yeah, I just
And
want to point out that the misprints aren't that uncommon, and it is definitely something they need to fix because
Yeah.
it's clearly causing issues. But
And I imagine, especially after this big incident, they're gonna like try and tighten up and triple check that everything's correct. But I have a little mini
mhm,
rant about like Skyward Serenade. Is like I understand the point of like how this in the current meta really broke balancing. Just giving her another like 0 for 4 in a deck that is just 0 for 4s, and oh, you played Arc Lightning, it's a 0 for 6. Like I can understand, like, oh, you gave Aurora like 1 to 2 extra points in her game with this card. I honestly think it's like 1 to 2 extra points. You had Flicker Wisp, sure. Now it's a 0 for 8. That's when it's crazy. It's like Flicker Wisp,
yeah,
Arc
yeah.
Lightning, Serenade. That's a crazy combo turn off of it. But like, I just want to point out like a few things, or like, and one thing is like I believe, and like I wrote this down because like I had a big old thing, but like I believe in a few years, like this card is just it's similar on every other Majestic. And it's once people or like other classes get filled in with more cards that are of like even like a point higher or this, it's not gonna feel like a crazy card. Like the combo piece of it was strong, but like combo cards have always felt strong. Like Aether Wildfire, when you combo that off with an Aether Flare where you get +X, like, oh, I dealt this much damage this turn, plus how much damage I dealt with Aether Wildfire. This spell's coming in for 13. Then I'm throwing Blazing Aether, which does da 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 da. It's always felt strong whenever someone's done something like that. Or like you go with the arms in Bolton into a Lumina turn. Like you always do crazy stuff like that. I think it's just because it was in the best deck with with a strong and easy to pull off combo that it feels really bad. I think it's cooler misprinted this way. It goes from an unusable card to a card that like has a lot of really interesting play around it and something that people use and play, and it is a combo piece. But it's like I can see when everyone has a higher level of Majestics, and especially when Fatigue's already like one of her worst ways to get through it. That eats 2 cards out of your deck for a 0 for 4, like out of just an average turn. So it's like I don't think that that card is a real problem, and I think the reason it feels like a I see you like biting your lips and arguing.
Ooh, that's a
Yeah. I
spicy
mean,
one.
it's super spicy, super spicy. I think the bigger problem is that it went to a hero in class that already has strong, developed, consistent cards. If this was in a class or a deck that
So
like
I think I need to stop you there because
mhm,
the biggest deal with this card was that not only was it a 0 for 4 go again, um, but it was a lightning 0 for 4 go again. That was the big reason why it was so good because all the rest of the cards in the deck are not lightning 0 for 4 cards go again. They are either lightning 0 for 4 or 0 for 4 go again non-lightning. And this
mhm,
fulfilled both of those, which is a big deal, like a really, really big deal for the deck. And not only that, but you also got the benefit of the arc lightning turns of it dealing 2 extra
mhm.
damage on the arc lightning turns, and even more if it's combo with flicker wisp or a second arc lightning, right? So at its floor, it was a 0 for 4 go again lightning card, which if you've ever played Aurora, I did some when I was preparing for PT London. I played the Aurora side. It was a big deal. It was a really, really, really big deal that it was a lightning 0 for 4 go again.
Mhm.
On top of it, and at its floor, and so I think that it was a bigger deal, right? Like than that.
Right.
Like it wasn't just another 0 for 4. It was the best 0 for 4 in the deck.
Right. And then like I mean, I think yes, it is like a very, very strong card. But what I'm saying is like you like looking in the future when a lot of classes get more developed cards, I don't think
Mhm.
it's gonna be something people look back up on and go like, oh, that's crazy. I think the biggest problem is like this misprint happened at this exact point in time where
I agree.
Aurora was the biggest combo like
Yeah.
deck like that. And it's like I can point to cards that have a lot more value in them innately. Like you can look at Codex of Frailty. That's at its floor a 0 for 7. Its absolute floor is a 0 for 7. I mean, if you're
Well,
not blocking or pitching with it,
yeah.
but like when you play it, it's a 0 for 7. But
Yeah.
like, oh, like the opponent had to discard a card, so it's actually a 0 for 10. Oh, would you look at that? Like I threw weakest link, and this was at the very end of my chain, so they have no cards to block. Well, it took their arsenal, so now it's a 0 for
Your CNC,
13.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's a 0 for 13. Oh, on top of that, they have -1 on their weapon attack, which they were gonna throw. So now it's a 0 for 14. Like, you could have something like that is way higher than arc, or like
Yeah.
it like that is way higher than this
No,
card
I
will ever
agree. I
get. And
agree.
like
The
I don't
problem wasn't that they printed a power card; it was that they printed a power card in a power deck.
yeah, that a deck that's already the best deck.
Yeah, I agree
And
with your point.
that's
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah. And I feel like this is like a problem of like you have all these power cards and these classes that are already strong. Like you went for like Runeblade, like Illusionist, like just as like example of two have already power cards, and I'm like giving them another one just adds so much more potential to that class. It's like imagining like another similar to Eighth Wildfire card in Kano. Like he's automatically the best deck when he's already a concern at the moment. And that's kind of like the idea. And it's like that's where I think the problem is like this card came out at a bad point where all of a sudden like there's a consistent level of decks, like excluding like Warrior and Brew, and there's there's a consistent level of like majestic power level in decks. And sure, some of them are crazy, like Codex of Frailty, but then like Ranger lacks a lot of other like majestic power, it feels like in some areas. And that's where it's like, okay, that's fine. But then you take this consistent level and you're like, oops, we accidentally gave another broken one to this class that's already barely above everything else. Runeblade already has like the best legendary in the game. And Aurora already has Arc Lightning, which is really good. And Flicker Wisp with Arc Lightning, which isn't. It's like you just pushed it past that point. But like I guess my point is I like this because in like 5 years, like everyone has stuff like that at that point. Like everyone has like a lot of power cards or can play to these kind of combos.
Yeah. Or
and on top of that, there's
yeah,
more
or it
ways
matters
to
less.
play around that kind of like gameplay.
Yeah.
I think it's just unfortunate that this happened at this point in time.
Yeah, 100%. And it is interesting to think what the Aurora deck would have been with that card, because as many people have said, that card would be effectively unplayable in that form, right? In the form that it was intended to be. And so the Aurora Armory deck was only really giving you Zap Clappers and the blue block 3 lightning card that was going to replace for not even every deck replaced Heaven's Claws. Some people still ran Heaven's Claws anyway. So the Aurora deck, the Armory deck, wasn't actually going to give any kind of power bump to the deck if Skyward Serenade was printed how it's supposed to be, which I think would have been a perfect spot for the Armory deck. I think it would have been a smashing success. Aurora would have been at a good power level. Like she still would have been strong, but she wouldn't have been busted, and she would have survived a while, and it would have had a really good onboarding experience. New players would have still had their Aurora deck, yada 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 yada. And so it does suck just how much missing a single black dot on a card really changed the game and the new player experience and everything.
And it's something interesting that I heard in the most recent Runways podcast where it's like, I think I heard Lucas say that if Flicker Wish was banned and Skyward Serenade was printed correctly, Aurora would still have a few more months in this game.
100%.
And I completely, like, even like 2 more months, which would feel a lot better because you'd be approaching 10, 11 months if those were corrected. And I think that's
I think
the
Serenade errata alone, or I guess not errata, but the original printing of Serenade alone would have caused her to have a few more months. I think that would have been enough, because that deck that changed 6 cards in the deck, right, to play around it.
Right.
So, but yeah, it happened. They're obviously going to be much more careful about it from now on, because like as opposed to the previous typos and print errors, this one was a huge mess up, like a huge screw up, right? And they're feeling it. they are definitely feeling it. And so, I mean, as we've known this whole time, the game is still growing. It's still getting better and better. They're improving every day, right? Like we shouldn't expect this to happen again. Um, that's one of the great things about LSS, right? So
Right. It's it's very, very interesting to like take all this in. And it's also interesting to know all these like back doors that a lot of companies would keep sealed. Like I
yeah,
don't think
yeah,
there'd be this much complaint about Serenade if they never told us any of these misprints.
yeah. And I mean, literally, they came out. That was one of the first in the first like 5 minutes of the video. Brian said, "Yeah, we fucked up." Like that was like he just came out and said it, right? Like they
Mhm.
know that they admitted that they messed up. Like, and what companies would do that, right? Like,
Right.
what a great company we have for our card game that they actually come out and will say like, "Hey, we messed up. We apologize," right? Like most games do not do that. Most companies do not do that, and so we're
Right.
privileged to have that those types of that type of leadership, right? And should celebrate that and not, you know. Anyway, we'll get to the community sentiment afterward, but
Right.
but yeah, it's a good thing that they're willing to be very open and honest with us, right? Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, so for the next point, they did try to do a little bit of damage control in terms of Aurora LLing so quickly. And so, quite literally, with the announcement of Aurora LLing in the same paragraph or the same tweet or blue sky message or whatever,
Mhm.
it says lightning strikes twice, or lightning sometimes strikes twice, or I can't remember how they phrased it, but basically they said explicitly she's coming back next year, right? Um, trying to say, hey, don't feel like your investments are misplaced. We're releasing this here within a year. You won't have to wait all that long, right? And so we have confirmation that Aurora will be back in a year. We don't know what form. It'll almost certainly be, a new hero with a new sub name, and a different hero effect. But there will be another playable Aurora hero in a year, which is interesting. It's the first time we've ever had that kind of announcement, right?
Mhm.
So
And I think that like I've heard a lot of uproar because people are like, "Oh, what about all these other heroes? Like Icelander's still not
yep,
reprinted."
that caused
Like
its own uproars.
yeah, and it's called his own record like its own
Well,
like controversy in a way. But like I think it's smart to like do this with Aurora because it is the onboarding hero. Like it
right.
is like, hey, like you can take this deck from old Aurora and just like when it comes out in a year, you can take this old deck and literally just transfer it over with a new hero card.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was important to do in this case, right? Whereas the other ones, they want to be a little bit more secretive about it and a little bit more like surprise. Here's your treat. Like here you guys get it. Like with Jarl. Like
Mm-hmm.
how much of a notice did we get for that one? Weeks? A month? I can't remember how much time we
Like
got.
we got a big notice. It was at the 5 year anniversary, but no one expected it. Was the thing.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, okay.
it was like, oh, da 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 da. Because I remember I was watching that. I was the most excited I've been for a piece of cardboard in my entire life. Because I was like watching the 5 year stream, and we were like, oh, like they're answering questions, da 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 da. And someone asked a question like, oh, when are we gonna get your over Trady in the game? And they're like, oh, speaking of which, here's an ad. And then they showed us the Ari deck ad, and it was the coolest experience I've ever like witnessed. It was awesome. But it's like
Yeah.
it feels so good to be able to like sit back and wait for those kind of reveals
Yeah.
where like it like yeah it sucks sometimes that it takes so long, but it feels so rewarding to finally reach that point one. But like this I feel like is a completely different scenario where it's like
Yeah.
it is
100%.
the onboarding hero, it's the onboarding like so far onboarding like class that you're getting sorry, you're getting Ira here soon, which is really good. But it's like it is this is meant to be, like bring people into the game. So it's like if we're trying to bring people into the game, they need to know when this is coming out next. Unlike the other heroes where it's like Dromai is for the already in franchise players. Like one Dromai comes out again, no one's
Which
gonna be
they did announce, by the way. I actually didn't catch that
yeah.
in the podcast, but someone else I was pointed out afterward that they said explicitly Drumeye is coming out soon,
Mhm.
which is pretty cool. I'm excited for
Yeah.
that one.
Like don't know how soon, but they did say that like Dromite is coming back,
Yeah,
which
we
is
got
very cool.
explicit. Yeah, which I mean, it wasn't guaranteed, right? Like it could have just been a
Mhm.
different, a different hero that happens to use the dragons. Like we always knew the dragons would be used again, but
Right.
to specifically say Dromite's coming back is uh pretty cool. But anyway, yeah, it was an exception. Like I don't know why they decided to say Dromite was coming back soon as well. Maybe to like appease
I
the the players that would complain ahead of time about like, hey, where's our Dromite? Where's our Icelander? And just kind of like give a
well,
little teaser. But
I
um,
sorry, I was gonna say that
yeah, go
I
ahead.
think it is because there's such a huge Dromite following. Like Dromite is so cool, has such a giant fan base.
Mhm.
People love Dromite. I mean, like you, for example,
Yeah.
I'm sure you're waiting for
Oh,
Dromite
I've
to
been
come
waiting this
back.
whole time.
Yeah, exactly. And I imagine they're smart. They know that they're gonna say, "Oh, Aurora's coming back," and like people are gonna be like the
But wait,
controversy
what
you're
about
talking about,
yeah?
like, what about this hero? What about this hero? We haven't heard anything about Lexi or an elemental, and they're like,
Mhm.
at least like quell is probably going to be the biggest crowd of Dromite, because you hear about it every time. Every time they announce an
Yeah,
armory deck,
I bring
people
it
are
up
like,
all the
"Is
time.
it Dromite? Is this it?" And nope,
Yeah.
it's not Dromite. So it's like they bring it up every single time that they're like, "Okay, let's like." We know that this is going to be like controversial in a little bit, but like let's
Mhm.
quell the biggest group. Say like, hey, like just tell them like, hey, it's
Yeah.
coming. The big surprise is
Yeah.
coming.
They don't
We
need
don't
to
know
say
when.
all of them are coming back. They just need to give us
Yeah.
one, and then we can speculate that okay, we'll get the other ones eventually. Like it's gonna happen.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like to quell the fire a little bit.
Yeah. But in addition to Aurora leaving, the Elo system is also going to be leaving pretty soon, next year. That was surprising. I did not expect that announcement. Uh,
I think that's the only non-controversial thing that came out of this entire dev talk.
right, which is interesting because I don't know where it came from. I guess there's been a saying for a while now that Elo is just fake, and I mean I agree. It's it's just fake. It's just whoever it's the latest event that highly influences it, right?
Mhm.
And therefore it's just it feels not very useful in that sense. Like it obviously the good players will have high elo ratings, but it's just so volatile um that it has discouraged playing. Like I don't want to go out to some of these events because I don't want to lose elo, right? And
Mhm.
so I think they're trying to address that by having elo go away next year. My theory being that it's going to be replaced by world tour points, um, which are the points that you earn from getting top 8, I think even top 16 or top 32 at tier 4 events. You get world tour points. Um, but they're the points that you get just for topping these events.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that'd be a good way to do it, right? It's just to have these world tour points that reset every year, and the more you have, the more you get qualifications for the bigger events because it makes sense. The more you travel to these smaller events, the more you participate in these games and uplift the community by like attending as many events as you can, the more you should get entry into the bigger events as well. So I think it makes sense, but
And it
we'll
doesn't
see what if that's ends up
disincentivize.
being what they actually replace it by, or if they just have some other new system like the XP system that they use instead.
Right, and it's not going to disincentivize people from playing, which is like the biggest
Exactly.
complaint I've heard from like Elo is like, well, I'm going to make it to like nationals through Elo or this through Elo, like, so I want to go to all these pro quests, but I can only really go to one to guarantee I get my invite.
That
So
was
I'm
me.
just gonna,
I would have
yeah,
played more. I would have played more Pro Quest just for fun if I wasn't just like scared of losing Elo. Not that
right.
I need to play more Pro Quests, but I mean I still would have had fun playing at them.
Mhm. Yeah, and like even if you're just like, I'm gonna bring a super silly deck, like I'm gonna bring Dash IO because that's super silly. But
Hey, Dash IO
whoever
is a
play,
real deck. Don't you dare diss my girl.
but yeah, it's like, but exactly, like you can bring whatever. Like you could sit down and you could play Olympia, and you're like, I'm not losing anything by playing Olympia. And hey, maybe I
Right.
find something super surprising. Maybe it's not the best deck, but like, oh, there's a tech I've never seen anyone else do, and it ended out working out. Like, can like
Yeah.
all of a sudden incentivize people to want to go and do more instead of like, oh, like my elo is so high, I don't want to ruin it. Like,
Yeah. I mean,
never
you just don't
something
want to
I've
just
had to worry about, but
you you just never want to disincentivize playing the games,
Yeah.
right? You don't want to have any reason for your players to not play the game, and that's currently what the elo system encourages. It encourages not playing the game, right?
Hmm.
So I look forward to whatever system they have coming to replace it. I think they said next year in 2026. Um, but yeah, my theory is World 2 points, but we'll see what they say.
Right.
So with all that being said, in the dev talk, I noticed a wide variety of responses to the dev talk and to Aurora LLing in general, and a lot of it was pretty negative. I don't know if that's what you gleaned from looking over a lot of the discussion, at least in our local Discord. Um, but what was I would say that the overall response was negative, and I don't quite feel that way, but I'm gonna get into why. I think both of us are a little bit biased in our feelings towards the dev podcast. But how what was your general thoughts of the community response?
I think so. I have like a roundabout way. It's like
Mhm.
I think that this whole situation, not a lot of it's positive. Like I said, I think the only non-controversial news is the elo system going. But not a lot of this news is positive. Like, oh, Aurora LLing is like too fast, the misprint, like, oh, like, hey, like as cool as it is, we're getting Aurora soon. It is like, or like we're getting Aurora back. It's like, oh well,
Yeah,
we
it's
know
bad
that there's other
news.
people. It's like none of it. It's like forced, kind of like, oh, we're gonna get Aurora again soon. Haha! Like, please don't be too mad. It's like not a lot of it's positive. So like, there's not like an outlet for people to come out and be like, oh, that was a really cool dev talk. Like, there's a few dev talks I listened to. I'm like, oh, that was like really interesting to listen to, and like, there's a lot of really good points that I really liked. Like, this whole dev talk is like, hey, we fucked up. Da 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 da. Let's walk through this. Let's talk about the problems. Like,
Yeah,
it's there's not a lot of room for like
it's a good point.
good good kind, like, I wouldn't say good conversation, that's not the right way to say it, but it's like there's not
Like
a
a
lot of room
positive
for people
outlook.
to be, yeah, to have a positive outlook from this. But so it's like, yeah, I think that but like my roundabout way is like saying all that, it wasn't like a great response. But I think it's like a lot of people talking about the problems they've had with, especially like everything that was this problem leading up to it. Where it's like there's a lot of points, like I said, like, oh, if we had more ban announcements, or like if Serenade was printed correctly, or if the this, it wouldn't have been a problem. And it's like it's hard for them to see a year in advance, but it's all these problems that people have been dealing with for a while. It's like when Lexi was the meta for how many months, like 8 months, people are like, man, like it wouldn't be a problem if this, and they addressed it, they fixed it, but it's just such a like tension point that it nothing really,
Yeah,
like,
and
it's not a good conversation to have, but it's something that needs to be said.
no, that's a good point. You're saying that you brought up that there, yeah, the whole podcast is essentially a negative podcast, right? It's like, hey, we messed up. Here's our reasons for it, but there's no good news here outside of just um some reparation news, right? Of like she's coming back in a year. Um, but yeah, it is interesting because personally, I wasn't that affected by Aurora's dominance or LL, right? I played a deck that felt fine into her competitively, and I didn't play as her, so I didn't have any kind of investments or attachment to her going away. And I think you were in the same boat, right? You played Jarl, has a pretty good matchup into her. You didn't really invest into Aurora, all right? I guess you did have Aurora though, right?
I was like, I did play a tiny amount of Aurora, but like with Beth, who I like was getting in the game, it affects me in a different way, where it's like it's not personally like something I'm dealing with personally, but like, well, who I play with kitchen table all the time, like Aurora's LL'd now, but it's like it's a little different because we're playing kitchen table. We'll just
Right.
keep playing it. We're not in an event. So it's like, yes, it affects me because like if Beth ever wanted to bring it to an armory, she can't anymore.
But we don't have any strong reactions to it. Is what I'm
But yeah,
getting at.
I don't have yeah, again, we don't have super strong reactions. It like affects me like that much, like a
Yeah,
little
yeah,
like tiny amount, but
Yeah, but
Outside of that, not really.
basically, I want to make sure that the viewers and the listeners know that we have that kind of bias when it comes to
Mhm.
viewing this dev talk. We have that not as much of a negative light in the news of it, right? Um, before I say like, yeah, the community response was negative, and I understand why, because a lot of people have a lot more to lose, had a lot more to lose from these decisions, um, and I I just wanted to point out that like there were good things about it, right? Like they did openly come out and say, "Hey, we messed up, and here's how we messed up," right? And here's like we know we did this, and we're gonna work towards making it better. Um, but I saw a lot of and I get it, but I saw a lot of things where like, oh wow, they fucked up like 3 different times to cause this thing, right? Like they didn't ban Flicker Wisp, they had the misprint, and they had um this new player path that caused all of us to have this like terrible result from the LL, right? Like
Mm.
there's a lot of like this they basically a lot of people like kind of lost faith in them because of that, and I get it, but I think it's important to take note like, hey, this game is not the same game it was even last year, or especially not like 2 or 3 years ago, right? Like it's continually getting better, just constantly getting better
Mm.
and better. And it's these moments like this that where like they come out and they say, "Hey, we messed up. Here's what we're doing to make it better." That those should be positive things to look at, from my perspective, as someone who wasn't as invested in Aurora. And um, it's a positive thing for me to be like, hey, this game's just going to get way better from this, right? Like it's only going to go up from here. There's
Mm.
there's no, it's not going to get worse from this happening. It's only going to get better. And I didn't see a lot of that being discussed. I saw a lot of like just the like what's the way I'm trying to phrase this? Just like the initial reaction of them declaring the mistakes instead of taking note that
Right.
because they're declaring the mistakes, it won't happen again. At least it shouldn't happen again.
Yeah, if it does happen again, that's one like
That's another thing. If it happens again,
yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I just want to address that because I noticed, at least for our local Discord, and I'm almost certain it's across the board, is that there was not a lot of happy feelings about this dev talk.
Right.
But I think it's important to take note of what this dev talk existing and some of the subtext of it means for the future of the game. So
Yeah. I completely agree with you there. Like it is important to know that like they've acknowledged this, but like I understand, like looking from a different perspective, like I think a lot of the conversation was like people that played into Aurora and didn't enjoy playing into Aurora because of how aggressive she became and how hard it was to play any game style that wasn't just defensive control kind of stuff. So it was something where it's like I think that like kind of the feeling I have for like new, like I can't play Guardians against new. So it's the idea of like I understand the frustration of this deck that's been so dominant and LSS didn't step in to fix it, and you like I get like, oh,
yeah, I
Bonds
get it.
Agony and new is so frustrating for me as a Guardian. Like you hit my blue sixes or my Macho Grande, and yeah, I can play around it one way or another, but like I make one mistake and I literally just lost the game because one card was sent at me. Like
Mhm.
I lost the game because I made one mistake throughout this entire game. I get the frustration, but it's like it is like trying to step above like a 10,000 foot view of like, yeah, I could like trying to understand that like they see the frustration and they understand that like a lot of their fan base is really upset on a lot of what has happened here, and hoping and that they can take the necessary steps to avoid or at least mitigate this from happening in the future.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's a good place to end it on. I think not the podcast. I'm just saying the dev talk portion of the
Oh
discussion.
yeah.
But yeah, I think yeah, basically yeah, like you said, summing it up, it's gonna be good for the game overall that this dev talk came out. They were open with it, but obviously it sucks uh, for that experience of the game to be
Mhm.
diminished by her LL early. Um, but yeah, so with that, we'll do a quick recap of the week 3 ProQuest results. So as most of you probably already know, Aurora was the top performer, but not by that much, actually. So Aurora got 44 wins, but right behind her is Florian with 37 wins. So Florian is clearly the next top dog now that Aurora is gone. And then followed by that is New with 13 wins, Arachne with 8, Azale with 7, and so on and so forth. But a pretty large portion of the pie, actually more than half the pie, was Aurora and Florian, which is interesting.
Looking at this, the only thing I can pray for after this week is New finds some way to beat Florian, figures out that one weird deck, becomes the best deck, and boom, gone by the end of Progress. But
yeah, it is interesting though, because there's a lot of I know at the Runaways just put out a tier list, putting Kano and Florian as the tier S decks, but we don't see Kano in this pie chart at all. He's just not in here. He got, let's see, he got 1 win this past weekend.
I mean, his matchup into Aurora is so bad though, and I think that's what's holding him back. Because like, who does Kano lose to after Aurora leaves? Slippy?
Yeah.
Syndra? But Syndra's not getting better with Florian being good.
Yeah.
Like,
so I get it.
Yeah. Like,
but it is interesting. So yeah, we'll see. That's why the current thoughts on the upcoming ban are Florian and Kano bans, because those are the current top 2 decks as projected anyway. I just want to go over that really quickly. And we got some more just today. We got some more Mastery Pack Guardian and Smash Palace spoilers and new info. I don't think we quite have time to go over them. We can definitely go over them a little bit more next week, or if we get even more spoilers, because we still haven't gotten all of the Smash Palace stuff, I think. Or no, we do have all the Smash Palace stuff, do we? We have all the heroes in the event pack, the event deck, right?
Right, yeah.
But yeah, we can go over that later. We don't have all the Guardian cards yet, though, and that is the bulk of it, because you get 12 packs of Guardian. It's the crack shuffle play with 3 packs each for up to 4 players. Was there anything you want to talk about with Smash Palace before we move on?
We could definitely. I know that we're getting near the end, and I could probably, like, knowing me, I could probably rant about this for like the whole entire podcast. So we could probably save this for another week when we're short on a topic.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that more next week. We did also get some slight more info for Mastery Pack Guardian. I think the main notable thing, at least the only thing that I noticed, was that there is a release weekend promo of, is it Battered from a Pulp? Is that what it was called? Battered to a Pulp.
Battered to a Pulp.
Yeah, so this was a ProQuest top 4, top 2, top 8
top
promo, 4. Top 4 promo. Was it Valda and this was top 4 promo? Is that what it was?
Valda was top 2. Nope.
Wait. Valda's top 4.
Like, was it the other way around? Valda top 4, Battered to a Pulp top 2, maybe?
I don't know. Anyway, it was either top 8 or top 2 or something for the Battle to a Pulp. So I had some concerns regarding availability of the card, since it is a very playable Guardian card. But now we're seeing that there are release weekend promo cards coming out with the Mastery Pack. So that should increase the supply of this card and make it so that anyone who needs it can get it at least a reasonable price, or get it themselves pretty reasonably. And the last thing I wanted to leave with this podcast was I am actually going to be co-casting the top 8 of a local ProQuest this weekend with Luke from the Anarchy Please YouTube channel. And I will put a link for that in the description below this YouTube video podcast. I'll try to add it to the Spotify one, but I don't think it's very easy to add links there. But if I can, it'll be in the Spotify podcast as well. Come check us out. It's on Saturday. It's starting at, let me double check the timing. Actually, I should have wrote this down in the notes. It is starting at 11:30 a.m. Denver time. So that's Mountain Standard Time. So that's when I expect the stream to start for Swiss. And then however many rounds after that, I assume 5 rounds, so roughly 5 hours, top 8 will happen, and I will be there co-casting with Luke for the top 8. So come catch us at that stream on Saturday, and link will be in the description for that. And I guess we should leave our viewers the question that I forgot to add to the notes. What question should we ask them for this week, Jacob?
Oh, there's so many spicy questions we can ask. I guess something simple, like something super simple. Do you think Gale system is working as intended?
All right. Yeah, let us know what your thoughts are in the comments below. And with that, I'm Cody.
And I'm Jacob.
And thanks for watching and listening. See you next time.